So basically what we are going to be doing now is understanding a little bit more about the structure of a Next.js application. As you can see over here, we have the app, we have a root layout, which will work as a base layout for any new pages that we are creating. And we have the main page, which will be the landing page, which is this page. We can create different routes. So for example, if we have a blog section in your page, you wanted to have the slash blog on your website. So in order to do that, we just need to create a folder and go to the page.js. Same thing works for slugs, because if you have a blog, you have posts. So in order to do that, you can just create a slug, and that slug will render basically the page with that specific post that you want. Apart from that, how this slug interaction works is you will have your app slash blog slash slug and the page, and basically what is gonna happen into your URL, you're gonna have something like blog slash a or slash whatever, and you're gonna receive these parameters. So without further ado, let's try to get this working on my code over here. Open up a layout tab. So we already did the pnpm run dev to run the dev server, and now we have the application on localhost 3000. After this, if we want to create a blog section, we will need to follow that steps that I said before. So create a new folder. This new folder will be called blog, and inside blog, I'll basically create a page.tsx. And inside the page.tsx, I just need to create a function component. So I need to do export default, because if you're creating a page, you need to have a default export. So default function, and then over here I can just put blog, default function, blog, curly brackets, and open and close curly brackets. After this, I just need to basically do a return. So inside this return, I can just create a React fragment, because I don't have like a specific component that wraps everything. So I just create this React fragment. Inside the React fragment, I'm able to create like just a header, because the intuition of this tutorial is just to get familiar with Next.js. So over here, just put blog. And now what will happen is if I try to go to my local host slash blog, I'm gonna see my blog header over here. So now that you understand this, you understand already everything about basically like the navigation folder. So if you want to create another page, it will follow the same structure. So for example, if we go over here, we create something like about us, and I just copy this one over here, and I just create a new page.tsx, and I paste over here, and then I just add a different name, about us, and over here just put about us. And I just need now to navigate into about underscore earth. Of course, this is not a good naming convention, would be better with the hyphen, but this is just a demonstration for you to understand how it works, right? So now that we access about underscore earth, you can see over here that it renders this new page. So this is basically how it works, right? Apart from that, another thing that you can do as well, this layout over here is working as a base for all the pages, right? So for example, you have the metadata, and then you have the title, the description, and because you're creating everything based on the root layout, what is going to happen is all your files will have this title over here and will follow the same guidelines from your root layout. So in order to change, or you want to have a different layout, a base layout for example, for the blog page, one thing that you can do is basically create a new file, and then you create a layout.tsx, and then you can create a layout.tsx, and inside this layout, basically, you can just copy this one over here. So you just need to basically copy everything, and you can paste, And of course, now I'm not anymore in the same position as my globals.css. So I need to just put another dot over here. And now I'm gonna be able to access one parent folder before that, and I'm gonna be able to access globals.css. Apart from that, I can just put something like this is my blog, and of course root layout, it can only be one, which is the root layout. So over here I would just put something like blog layout. And if I try now to access my blog page, you'll see that here now it's rendering based on our blog title and also our description. Anything we wanted later on to change over here for our layout, we can change in there. So going back a little bit into the layout, one thing that's very important is to understand that in Next.js, you don't need to go back to those days where you have the head and then you close the head and then you put like basically everything here, right? The title, you put the title and you put all of those other informations over here. What we can do instead that's actually way better is just use the metadata. The metadata will allow you to add title, description, even the links, favicons, anything that you want basically. So like things for social media. So you can have the Twitter card, like when you're adding a link and you can have the preview. Basically, you can set up everything here. You can also modify the layout the way you want because now this blog layout, this page is inheriting everything from this layout. Now to understand about the navigations using the slug, we can just create a slug over here. So the way Next.js handles like dynamic sort of navigations is by adding these special square brackets where you can also access variables from there, right? So in order to do that, what I would need to do is basically create a page as well. So I'll create a page.tsx, and inside this page, basically, I need to just do a export default asynchronous function, and then I can just put like blog posts. Why I need to do this, why I need to declare an asynchronous function is as we're receiving parameters, props, we say, right? As we're receiving them, we need to async into this function over here. For receiving dynamic parameters like the slug that we're going to receive, it's mandatory using Next.js to get asynchronous parameters. So you cannot get more synchronous because of course sometimes there's delays and they try to account into that as well. So over here, just need to that parameters. And after this, I just need, because I'm using TSX, I also need to define my typings over here. So it'll be parameters, and then I can just do a promise of the specific parameter I'm trying to receive. So in this case, it's just a slug and is a string. So once I have this now, let's create the body of my function. To create the body of my function, I just need to add a constant and then destructure my slug. And I have two options. I can use equals await my parameters, or nowadays we also have the use. So another option over here would be like const slug equals to use parameters, and use will be imported by React to import use from React. And we have these two ways, so you can either await or you can use the use for React. The privileges of using use is that it can handle multiple asynchronous calls, where await you would have to handle that yourself. And then after this, I can just do a return on, I can just create a div over here, and then I can just put my h1 and render the slug over here. Now that I already have this, what is gonna happen is when I call my specific URL, like we saw before, when I call my specific URL, just like we saw over here, we have the blog slash a, which is the parameter. We are gonna be doing is receiving the parameters, getting the specific slug, which we will always consider as a string, and just destructuring that, awaiting for the parameter, because now it's mandatory for the parameters to be awaited. And once they're awaited, we can just show them into the URL. Now, if we go over here in blog, that would be usually where you list the posts. But once we put a specific thing like this is my blog, it will show over here, of course, with the percentage 20, which is spacing in URL decoding. But if I just put something simple, I can just put something, this is my blog. And now here it is, you also can render specific slugs. So that will also be useful if you have specific pages where you need to pass information. And from there, you could just call an API after you receive the slug and retrieve specific data to the users. So that would work as well for you. And that's basically everything you need to know to just get the ground running to create URLs and specific sections on your website.